Hello everyone! Thank you so much for joining me today. Today I have got a fun little tutorial of making just sort of a fun, simple, quick and easy card. So we've got a few supplies today. I will do my best to link everything down below that I can. The focal point of this card is going to be this die set here, which is a new set from Craftstash, who I am now designing for. This die set is really affordable. I think it's around £7 and you get 6 dies in the set. So we're going to focus with that today and use that. We've also got these 2 stamp sets here. I'm going to try not to catch my light. They are called Mindfulness, and these stamp sets kind of go along with their new dies in their creative range. These are not photopolymer. These stamps are more of a silicone base, so they're that kind of lightweight stamp, which is why I think these are quite affordable as well. So we've got those to use with our cards. I've also got these dot and dab adhesive sheets. Now Alina also sells these in the A4, which I use a lot of. I happen to have a whole ton of these I accidentally ordered, and so I'm trying to use these up as well. I'll link both down below. I'll link Alina's and I will link these ones. I've got this fun paper from Tonic. I have been ordering a lot of stuff from Tonic lately and been having a lot of fun. I've already used one sheet from here, and I'm sorry the glare is going to be crazy, but the texture on this card is really cool. So I don't know if you can quite catch that without being blinded by my light, but it's very textured. Really cool cardstock. So I've got that from Tonic, and then I've got my Arteza Premium Watercolor card. Now this is really quite a pricey watercolor card, but you do get 32 sheets, and you can probably get at least 4 card fronts out of each page. So that's roughly 128 card fronts that you could get out of one pack of these, and this is very thick cardstock. It is 300 GSM or 140 pounds, so it's quite good. And I don't use this as a card base, I use it as a card front, so I can kind of make it stretch and work a bit more. It's cold pressed paper. It's just a really good color, really good quality watercolor card. I'm not an artist, so I don't actually know how to use this appropriately and make the most of it, but in card making I do like when my watercolor card works well for me, because I'm not so skilled in the area of watercolor, so it helps to have a nice paper that works well. I'll link that down below as well if you want to check it out. So we're going to take one of these sheets and we're going to cut our card front. Now this die here is 4 by 6 inches. So I'm going to cut my card, my watercolor card is going to be 4 by 6 as well. And I'm going to attach, and I'll share with you how I'm going to do that. I'm going to attach my sticky back onto here so it makes it easier when I'm sticking this down. So I'm going to go ahead and prepare those now. So I have just cut these two, this one sheet into half, and I apologize loads because probably the glare is probably going to be crazy on your eyes, but I wanted to share with you how to do this really quick. I'll just flip that onto there so it's not blinding you as much, and this is also shiny. We're going to use both of them. We won't use all of it, but we're going to mount them both onto the sticky back. So I just kind of pull off a corner, then work out which side is the sticky side. And this is a trick I learned from my boss at work, because when we do, when we mount some pictures onto our sticky back board for framing them at the picture framers, we have to be really careful not to damage the artwork and to get it lined up really well. So this is the trick. You peel back just that top bit there. Okay, so you've only got that little bit showing. Then you're going to take your cardstock that you're going to be sticking down, and you're going to stick it and line it up with the slippy end. So this has still got the release paper on it. We're going to line it up on that end, and we're going to make sure that the top and the bottom edge are both even as well. And then we're going to push it down onto the sticky. So now we've got it stuck like that. Okay, so it's just stuck at the top. Then what we can do is we can pull back the release paper, and then we can push down our cardstock. And now our cardstock is sticky back cardstock. Okay, so I'm going to do that with my other piece off camera, and then I'm also going to die cut out the bits we're going to need. Now, the other thing I forgot to mention that would be really handy to have would be some watercolors as well. Now, the reason I'm suggesting watercolor paints is because we're going to be overlapping colors. So another thing you could use is Tim Holtz Distress Oxides. They will work really well as well if you've got some of those. Sort of anything water-based. If you've got water-based ink, this should work as well. I'm going to use my Arteza metallic gouaches today. So we've got our watercolor card, and I've cut out all these. Now this cardstock, and again I'm apologizing because it's going to be reflecting, is really great because I've run that through a couple times on my die cutting machine and it hasn't flattened or squashed the pattern at all, which is lovely. So I've got that one, the base done. I've got some of the random extra circles done, like that. And then these are the individual circles, which are quite fun. So they just cut a little tiny ring around them. And I'm just going to leave them inside this paper. So it has not cut all the way through for the majority of it. And that's fine because we're just going to peel it off, and it's quite nice that that can stay on there because then your leftover bit here you could reuse. And technically I should have actually probably just cut those out of the center of that, and that would have saved a whole lot of cardstock and paper. So top tip, learn from Sasha. Right, so we're going to peel this bit off here. You can see it comes off really nicely and really easily. Now I've cut my cardstock to be the same size as this base, and the reason I've done that is because I want to be able to line this up nice and easily. This frame is very, very thin, and so it's going to be a bit tricky to sort of get on to our piece of cardstock because the die cutting, when you die cut it, kind of slightly ever so stretches it. So to have a base to put it onto will really help us. Okay, so we've got that all off, and it's now nice and sticky on the back, so we don't have to worry about getting adhesive on there. And because it's metallic, we then don't also have to worry about the adhesive getting all over our metallic cardstock and kind of ruining it. Now this is going to be a bit tricky. I'm going to zoom in and hopefully not get my head in the shot, but I'm going to line it up right along with the edge of this piece of card because I cut this card to the exact same size as the die. So I'm just going to line it up on the very edge of all the sides. So I'm doing that one with the bubbles first, and then I'm kind of stretching it as I stick it down, but I don't want to pull too tight because I also know my cardstock has stretched a little bit in my machine. So again, I'm just going to line it up with that edge and just kind of doing one side at a time. I'm going to give it a firm press when I'm completely done. Now you can see here this is bubbling up just ever so slightly because of that stretching, but because we've got the sticky back adhesive, it kind of just disappears into it. So that is that all lined up. So now we can press it down and give it a bit of a firmer rub. And what I like to do is take my scrap bit of fabric, sorry, my scrap muslin, and I just kind of give it a rub, a nice firm rub down on there. And then there we go, we've got that on. And now we can pick and choose where we want to put our bonus bits. I just felt like I wanted to fill out the card a bit more, kind of add a bit more onto it. So we could either do a card front facing this way with some kind of sentiment or message or something in the middle there, or we could do it horizontally, or landscape is the word, isn't it? So we could either do portrait or landscape. Because we've got that sticky back on it, it makes it slightly thicker, which is easier to work with, but also it just, you can just stick it down. You don't have to worry about gluing and getting all that adhesive everywhere. So I'm just going to kind of stick it, I think, in this corner here. And once I've worked it out, I'll just give it a nice firm press down again. I just love it. I love using sticky back double-sided adhesive because it just means it's so much neater and cleaner when you're done. Right, and then I'm going to add in, I think I'm going to stick in a circle maybe on this corner here. Then we can take our scissors. I've got these Tim Holtz tonic scissors. They are non-sticky ones, so they are titanium, and you can't, the adhesive just doesn't stick to it, which is really nice. It's kind of like those frying pans, like the no-stick frying pans, so everything just kind of comes off and they don't get gunked up and sticky like my other scissors. These ones here are all covered in adhesive, so you don't get that with these ones. Again, I will link everything I can down below so that you can go and check it out if you'd like to find it yourself. By all means, have a look and see if you can find anything cheaper anywhere else, because I always think that's a really wise thing to do, because otherwise it gets quite expensive. But I know the creative brand is Craftstash only. Right, so next thing I'm going to do is I have got my watercolors here. These are all my gouache watercolors. I've got another tin as well with some in. I've got the metallic watercolors here. These are all from Arteza. I will link them all down below if you want to check them out. They come as a liquid in a tube, and you just squirt them into one of these watercolor pans and you let them dry. And then when you want to use them, you just kind of give them a bit of a spray or squirt some of your water in there. And that kind of reactivates them. And then you just let them dry out again. So I'm going to aim for using these 4 colors here. I'm going to use the green, the blue, the purple, and the pinky red. And they all have a pearlescent kind of shine to them, which is what I like about them. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to fill in some of these circles. So I'm just going to have fun. It doesn't matter what you do or how you do it. I quite like when you don't have 2 colors the same right next to each other. So that's all I'm going to do. Okay, so once we're done, we've got this little beautiful watercolored background. And the thing I love is that this dye, when you stick it down, allows that watercolor to stay in those circles. So it's really good, apart from the fact that occasionally my brush goes a little crazy as I get painting. But then there we've got a really cute, fun background. So next I thought it would be fun to stick a sentiment on, so I thought live, love, laugh and be happy would go really well in the center there. So I'm going to stamp that down using this stamping platform. So I forgot to press record when I started back, my battery died. So all I've done is I've got my sentiment and I just lined it up on there, and I'm using my stamp platform purely because I don't want to muck it up at this point when I've gone so far with my creative background. And also, I know that with watercolor card, because it's so textured and thick, sometimes it can be a bit difficult to get a nice clear image on, and sometimes you do need to stamp a couple times. So that wasn't too bad. Now with non-photopolymer stamps, so ones like this that are more of a silicone base, I find it easier to use an ink that is a pigment ink, purely because the water-based inks don't seem to stick to the stamp. They kind of pool up a bit. So if you've got any of these kind of pigment inks, so VersaFine Clair, the VersaFine Onyx Black, these are inks that you can use to do some embossing with. They stay wet for longer, and I find you get a nice clear image with one of these kind of inks versus a water-based ink. I know you don't usually stamp with a distress ink, but something like those, or Lawn Fawn, or any other kind of water-based ink, you're going to struggle with getting that nice clear image. But at least if you're using a stamp platform, you can do it multiple times in the same place and get a nice clear image. So there's our little sentiment stamped on there, which is looking gorgeous. Then what I always like to do is I like to pop it onto a card base and kind of have a bit of an edge around it. So sometimes I'll layer it up. In this case I won't do, just because it's already got that beautiful silver edge. So I'm going to cut a card base that is just slightly bigger than 4 by 6, so I'll probably go with 4 1/8 by 6 1/8 roughly is what my card base will work out to be. So obviously my cardstock is just slightly different color, which does bother me a little bit, but never mind, there's not much you can do about it unless you want to make your base out of your watercolor card as well. So I'm just going to fold that over in half, use my bone folder to just give it a nice crease, and then that fits on there just nicely, so we've got just a tiny border going around the edge. Just going to stick it down and kind of wiggle it into place so I've got a nice even border on all the sides, and then kind of give it a firm press. Obviously if your watercolor card is still a bit damp, you want to wait for it to dry a bit before you go pressing down, because you might smear your paint. Then we've got a beautiful, simple, easy, quick card. Obviously you could go and decorate your envelope as well. You could also then stamp on the inside and add something on there, which I love doing. So I just wanted to share with you, I did a second one as well, and I backed it onto a blue card base, which I felt worked a bit better than the white card base. And then I used a pearlescent card on the inside and just stamped some flowers, and I did best wishes on this one. So we have that one and we have that one there. So a really nice, quick, simple, easy card. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you all soon. Bye.